Hello everyone, I'm Paddy from creativemedia.org.uk, and today I'm going to do a bit of a marathon tutorial because today is all about maps. I've recently done a map for an arts project which is basically recreating this Google map here. Why on earth am I recreating this Google map here? This map is great, it's perfect, it's got all the markers on, it's got all the roads on. Why don't I just print this out and put this on my brochure, which is what I'm printing out, a kind of trail map. It's even quite easy to get a decent resolution. If you look here, there's my code. I've got the Google map code here. I've got the width and height. I can put that to whatever size I want. Make a web page to display that. And basically I can take a screen grab of this and print it out at any size I want. Well, I can, but Google make it very clear that while they're very happy for all of us to use their maps, and they're wonderful things, it's really amazing, superb, thanks Google, they don't give you permission to print them out and use them in your own printed materials. Okay, it'd be very easy just to nab this. I'd probably get away with it, but partly it's the principle of the thing, and also if I didn't get away with it, then the people who paid for the printing would be rather annoyed. I'd look rather bad, and I could even get prosecuted potentially and get fined. And the final reason is this way I get to learn how to do a map myself, which is a useful skill, and I can make the map look however I want it because I'm going to be drawing it myself. If you don't know the difference between vectors and bitmaps, then listen up because this is a useful thing to know. In a bitmap, each pixel, each little dot or little square dot that the picture's made out of is mapped, so the computer knows the position of each dot and the colour of each dot. This one on the right is a bitmap, this one on the left is a vector. They look the same as each other, but when we zoom in, look at that, you can see all the dots here. I've zoomed right in. Each individual dot is stored as data, so we've got a dark blue dot, there's lighter blue dot, and so on up to a grey dot, white dots. If I zoom in to my lovely vector map, this is one I'm going to be showing you, that is my demonstration. However far I go in, it's still perfectly smooth. Beautiful. That is because instead of storing information about the dots, the computer is storing information about shapes and curves. A vector is a kind of direction and speed, I think. You'd need a physicist to help you out here. But the shape of this line is being stored rather than each individual dot along it. And the shape of the text, because the text is basically shapes as well, that's being stored as well. So whatever resolution I get it printed at on the printing press, it's going to look totally smooth. So vectors are definitely worth doing. How do you do vectors? Well, you'll need a vector graphics program, and I strongly recommend Inkscape. Inkscape works on Macs and PCs, I think on Linux as well, possibly, and you can download it for free, but somebody's written this and they've done a really nice job, so there's an opportunity to give them a donation, so please do. You shouldn't expect people to give you nice software for nothing. If you've already got Adobe Illustrator and you're used to using that, you're probably better off with that. Back to my Google map, I can use a screen grabbing application to output this map at the full size at 1920 pixels by 1920 pixels. I use a Firefox one screen grabber which outputs the entire screen to a PNG file. Then I can import that into either Inkscape or Illustrator and start drawing the shape I want based on the roads. Since we're using this Google map to mark the position of all the art displays on this trail that I'm doing the map for, I can use the positions of these to position my markers on my map. Let's get on to the drawing bit. So here's the map. This is the bitmap graphic. As you can see, when you zoom in close, you can see all the dots and such like. And we want to make a lovely smooth version of this that we can resize, because that's one of the magic things about vectors. You can change the size of them, and because the computer is not storing pixels, it's storing shapes, it can just make the shapes bigger or smaller, so everything stays looking as smooth as it ever did. Now, the important thing when you're making maps, particularly if you're making them for somebody else, is to think ahead to what might need changing. I rather didn't do enough of this. I thought I was thinking ahead, but I should have thought ahead a bit more than I did. I made all the roads too narrow, and also made a lot more work for myself than I could have done. The two ways of drawing the roads are either drawing a shape, like this for instance. I'm doing these roads extra thick because I want to fit the text on them, and I can draw more shapes along here on top of each other, like that. I can change the width if I want it to have a narrow road, and I can select all of those and do path union. That's joined them all together. But if we look at how that's constructed, any vector graphic is made out of lots of curves. So each of these little dots is called a node, and it controls the shape of the overall shape. And you can see there's lots of these. And if I want to change kind of the curve of a road, I've got kind of to move all these things around, and it's a bit of a disaster really. You can end up in a real mess. So I don't really need so many of these little curved dots, these nodes, to make my shape. So it'd be great if I could just delete them. Well, I can do it like this. I can select them and delete them. Whoops. Make it simpler. Like so. Or I can just select the shape and choose path simplify. And the great thing on Inkscape is you can apply your own shortcut keys to all of these, so you can speed things up. So that simplify has removed lots and lots of these dots and made the shape a lot simpler. So it'd be easier to update the shape, but even so, not totally easy. You'd have to kind of mess around altering the curves and things somewhat. So that is one way of doing it, and that's the way I did it. But I wish I did it a different way. The other way is to just make the roads out of lines. So like this and like that. And then I can set the thickness of them all. Like that. I can make them thicker and thinner. And the great thing is with this, that if I want to change the shape of a road, I can just do it by changing the shape of the line. And it's a lot easier. And there's other things that are going to be easier, like placing the text too, which I will show you later on. So this probably is the way I should have done it. Now I could do the whole map in Inkscape, but I've got Illustrator, and Illustrator has a few time-saving things that'll make things easier. I mean, I could make the whole map in Illustrator as well, but I'm using Inkscape to start with because I just find the drawing so much easier. Of course, the disadvantage of drawing with lines is the positioning of the ends. If I were to make these roads very thin, then you can see I've not actually positioned the joins perfectly. They're kind of slightly overlapping, and you'd have to move things around. And But if you've got really thick roads, it's not really a problem. Just make this map a bit more complicated. There, a bit more of a complicated map. I'm going to go into Illustrator now. So this is what I drew in Inkscape. And I'm going to make these roads a bit thicker in here now. Stroke. Yeah, it's a bit too thick. So let's say I want to add some names to these roads. If I was working with the that screen grab, then I could put this screen grab behind and then I could see the names of the roads quite easily. If you save it as a PNG file and open it in Photoshop, then you can make all the green bits transparent, which might be useful, so you can sort of see through it, and these thin roads can superimpose your thick roads. Well, to add the names of the roads, I want it to follow the shapes of the roads, and the type on path tool is very useful. But if I use it on this map, as soon as I click, the stroke switches off, and then if I type the text and put the stroke back on, then it starts affecting the text, which is really not what I want. What I want to do is copy my roads, make a new layer, call that names. I'll call my original layer roads. Okay, roads with an S. And then I'll copy my roads onto names. And just manually line that up. So now I've got two layers which are almost aligned. And they both are exactly the same. But what I can do now is lock my roads layer and use my text to path tool on the names layer on these lines, which perfectly match up the roads underneath because they're the same lines. But what I'd also do is to set a paragraph style for your roads, because like as not, your client's going to say, oh, I don't like that text font, or I don't like the colour. And if you use the style, rather than having to change every single piece of text, you can just change the style and all your roads will update. I'm going to call this road Badger Road. And I'm going to set up a paragraph style for this. And make the size 12 points to have white text. And I can also set things like the positioning of it. So I can use the baseline shift to position it, say -4. Position the text actually in the middle of the road there. Which is very handy. You can see the other lines on this names layer are on top, but that's not a problem because we'll be losing those in a moment. So it's Badger Road. This is going to be Fox Crescent. That text is on the wrong side, but I can fix that. There we go, Fox Crescent. There we go. And so on. I can do the rest of the roads in the same way. So now we have our road names on one layer and our actual roads on another layer. And we've got this paragraph style. So when our awkward client says they want their text to be a different colour, we can go into the paragraph styles, go to colour, change it. There we go, all our road names. And you might not have 3, you might have 3,000 road names. You can update them all in one place. If they don't like the typeface, so they want them bigger. You can, this will fit with 14 point, and we can change font family to that one. There we go, we've got different typeface now. So I'd recommend this technique for doing roads and making maps. And if your client doesn't like the roads the width they are, you can also adjust them to, I don't know, say 18. You can adjust all your roads, and you've got a lot of control over how the thing's going to look. So now we've got the roads and the names. What about the markers? Well, if you're using, like I did, a Google map with markers on, then you've got the positions here. So you can just click symbols in all the places where you want them. Now, as soon as I say just, I know things are going to be a bit harder than they ought to be. The symbols are easy to make. Let's say as our marker we want a fox. I've just hopped across to Inkscape to draw my fox because I'd be swearing pretty rapidly if I was trying to draw it in Illustrator. It's a very large fox. Let's make this fox a wee bit smaller. Now to make this fox into a symbol, we're going to make it into a symbol by dragging it into the symbols box. Call it fox marker. It's always good to name your things sensible names rather than just having untitled 1 and untitled 2, because once you get lots of things and you have forgotten which of the untitled is the one you're actually using, then you'll run into trouble. So this fox here we can just get rid of, and we can drag this symbol, it's a bit big, to all the places we want it, like so. And this fox is too big, so why not make it a bit smaller? If we double click on symbol, we go into special symbol editor, and we can reduce the size of the fox. Click this little back arrow, and all our foxes are nice and small. The good thing with symbols, you can actually rotate individual instances and resize individual instances of them. And when you update the symbol, then the rotation is kept and the sizing is kept, but since I've made all the foxes bigger, they've all got bigger. But if you've got a complicated map like my one here, having to drag a symbol to every single spot here is a bit time consuming. So there's a thing called a symbol sprayer in Illustrator. What this does is it sprays symbols. I should say, make a new layer for your foxes. I'm not going to do it here, but put them on a new layer, because then you can select them all, delete them all, show them, hide them quite easily, because your client might say, oh, we want a version without the markers. A symbol sprayer means you can spray foxes all over the place. Not very nice if you're a rabbit. That's not ideal for accurate positioning of the markers. And I found even if you just do single clicks, they all start moving, and sometimes you end up with 2 and such like. So don't do it like that either. But the best method I came up with is firstly to double click the symbol sprayer tool and set the intensity down to 1 so it doesn't spray 2 when you just want 1. Now we can just get 1 at a time. But they still kind of move as you click each new one, which isn't very good. So this isn't ideal, but if you click one, deselect all, click the next, deselect all, which you can do, I'm using a Mac with Command-Shift-A, then each one is an individual instance. let's say they wanted the fox to be a different colour. So we could have a green fox instead. And now with just one edit, you've updated all your foxes, all your markers, whether you're using foxes or not. So that is a very powerful tool as well. And of course, if I'd put all my foxes onto their own separate layer, I could put the text above them or below them, because my text is on its own layer and my roads are on their own layer. As it is, I've muddled up the foxes with the roads. I hope that long rambling tutorial has been of some help to you. I certainly recommend drawing your roads as lines rather than as shapes, because you can see on my map there's a few places where I thickened the roads and they've rather oozed over each other like a icing on a cake. These two things here, these are meant to be separate roads, but because I thickened all my roads, they've kind of squelched over each other, and these roads look like they join up and they don't really in reality. But I hope this has given you some ideas of how you can actually do it, because making your own map is very satisfying. It's very time consuming, but some of the tips I've shown you, like style sheets and symbols, can mean when somebody wants things changed, you can actually do it, and it's actually quite fun, rather than just saying, no, I've got to replace 200 markers and do all that text again. So that can save you a lot of time and a lot of swearing. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and happy map making.